episode, I don't know, 900 of people living outside Japan being delusional about public transport in Japan in general. First up, you're comparing like you're comparing a major city which has like way more population than Singapore in itself and another major city versus an industrial estate and another industrial estate. People commute between Tokyo and Osaka. They commute using either high-speed rail, Shinkansen, or like domestic flights, or some people they commute using the overnight buses or like the expressway buses, which it's like kind of cheap as compared to like Shinkansen. The reason why people even commute between Tokyo and Osaka in the first place is because for business trips, maybe during Golden Week they want to go on a holiday or something. And there are also people they either commute via domestic flights or like via Shinkansen. They literally like they stay in Tokyo and they commute to Osaka for work and vice versa as well. There are people who actually do that. There is like actually significant demand for that. Before you make comments like these, ask yourselves like who in the I cannot swear too much even though I really want to swear. Like who commutes from this area to like this area? And you guys know that this area right now, there is no bus down there. You have to reach there via like, I don't know, private buses or cars or trucks. I don't know. Like, if you at least mention Pasir Ris to say Jurong West or Jukun maybe, but let's just say Jurong West. If you're saying that like there is no fast option from Pasir Ris to Jurong West, be it via train or bus, then okay, at least at least you specified. And you're not like those delusional groups of people who just, let's just pick the eastern point to the western point of Singapore and let's compare them, regardless of demographic. Okay, by bus, I was gonna suggest something like this or this. But honestly, 506 is on OTA and it's slow as shit. So, okay, 985 it is then. You transfer to this one, and then you transfer to, let's say, this one. And like, there are a million ways to reach Pasir Ris. And technically, you don't even need this. You can just like, cross the overhead bridge and then transfer to like 15. And that'll take you to Pasir Ris already. You want a faster route? Alright, change to 58 then, if you're going Pasir Ris West. Or you can do this, 974, and then you change to 974 goes like Bukit Panjang, so you can change to this one. You cross the road, and then you can do the same thing as well. The thing is, when discussing about things like these netizens, for some reason, like when you ask them for like a specific solution, they are just simply flat out unable to quote one and are only speaking because they just want to speak. And when you ask them to like substantiate their claims or whatever, they're just flat out unable to substantiate. Now, I do know that like a lot of Singaporeans, they don't really know how to use public transport, as in like I'm not saying those who drive. I'm saying that like people who regularly commute via bus or train, they don't even know how to use it properly. But okay, let's just say train. I know. Singaporeans, they love to complain that their east-west line is slow because geographically, this thing like, does this kind of troll within the city before it goes to Jurong East and Boon Lay. Okay, yeah, I agree. And then they also complain that like, the future Cross Island line, there is no like express train or whatever. Then I'm like, okay, fine. You know why there's no express train? That's because there's no demand for it in the first place. Like, or at the very least, like projected demand. But honestly, sometimes I feel like Singaporeans they're only complaining because they don't have express trains. They're like blindly comparing to Japan and stuff like that, simply because of this one small thing. Now, as for why at Cross Island Line, East West Line, they cannot have like express trains is because to have express trains, you need to like quad track them, like quadruple track them. Because if not, then you would have to end up doing all this like stupid stuff with like all the passing loops, and then it's like the local trains have to wait and yield to the express trains. It's like different tiers of the different levels of expresses, and then the lower levels they have to like give way to like the higher level, the higher tier express services. It's very messy, honestly. Like if you live in Japan, yeah, you would know this kind of stuff is like really messy and inefficient. I mean, in Japan's case, some train lines they literally, be it within the city or like in the suburbs, they literally run through residential homes, and because of that, they don't really have enough space to expand like on the sides, and that's the reason why they cannot just quad track as much as they like. Now there are ongoing efforts to like at the very least elevate or shift some sections underground to grade separate them a little bit so that at least they wouldn't need to have so many level crossings with the road, which is where unfortunately a lot of accidents happen. And when a safety check at a level crossing occurs, because like the gantries or whatever you call them, they don't really flip down or flip up properly. They're jammed. I don't know. They malfunctioned, and then they have to be manually reset or something along those lines. All of these they would cause delays. And I'm just gonna tell you that like Japan's railways they are not grade separated like most of them. And that's kind of the reason why they cannot automate. Because of the dynamics of like railway in Japan in general, they are like lagging behind the rest of the world when it comes to like automation in general. A lot of lines they are stuck at grade of automation GOA level 1, and only a few lines they managed to go up to 2 or like 3, and then obviously some new lines they are GOA 4 from the start. So yeah, but if you're starting from GOA 1, your glass ceiling is usually GOA 3. Like let's say Yamanote line, they're increasing it from 1 to 2, and then 2 to 3. And then some lines like Marunouchi line, they are experimenting with like CBTC stuff like that. So yeah, there will be an increase in the amount of like automation in general. So yeah, but my main point is that like Japan is like kind of slow whenever it comes to like this kind of large scale automation or even grade separation kind of thing. Okay, maybe I'll use a case study like on a more personal level. I absolutely despise this line because number one is not grade separated, so the delays happen very often. You take this line, all you will hear is "Kyūtei shimashimasu, kyūtei shimashimasu." Attention please, the emergency brakes have been applied. You will hear this more often than the average Singaporean complaining about their public transport system, even though it's not really that bad in the first place. This line's frequency sucks. And they have to yield to like, all the, what you call that, Tokiwa, Hitachi, all the limited expresses. They also share the same tracks with freight trains. So even the local trains, they have to yield to the freight trains as well. And then the Tokubetsu Kaisoku, the rapid trains, they only like right now, if I'm not mistaken, they only operate like one for each direction during the day, the entire day, I mean. And unfortunately, this line also runs into a lot of like the Jinshinjiko, which is like the when passengers get injured or like when people or vehicles, something bad happens at like the level crossings per se. This line, because it's not grade separated, it's quite prone to it. This line runs from like Ueno area. Okay, to be more specific, Shinagawa Ueno via Ueno Tokyo line, and then it runs through Adachi Ward. Then it goes to Chiba Prefecture, then Ibaraki Prefecture, and then it goes on to Fukushima Prefecture, and then Miyagi Prefecture. It ends at Sendai. So yeah, and then I think every morning there is like one true service from like Shin Rifu, and then going to Joban line, but that's like sectional only. It's not the entire Joban line. But yeah, my whole point is that this line is a cross country line, and it's split into like different sections. And you can say the suburban or the countryside sections, their frequencies are absolutely horrible. It's like 1 hour 30 minutes per train, 1 hour per train, 2 hours per train, 3 hours per train, 4 or 5 hours per train, especially near Iwaki. If you know, you've taken a local train in that area, you wait, actually is it 5 hours? Sorry, I think 5 hours is Banetsu Tosen, like the Banetsu East line. I think the main line it's probably around a 2 hour frequency at worst, I think. Okay, so basically my home is at Matsudo. And okay, let me show you Joban Line Rapid. Okay, because of history, Joban Line Rapid, its terminal used to be at Nippori, and then it got extended to Ueno. So it does Ueno Nippori, and then this stupid thing needs to throw at Mikawashima, or is it Shin Mikawashima? I cannot remember the station's name. And then it needs to like go up again. Whereas Chiyoda Line at Nishi Nippori, it's a lot straighter. It runs through Machiya instead. And then this one is Mikawashima. It's like, geographically speaking, this line is quite stupid, the rapid line. Whereas the local line, even though it's kind of slower, it geographically it makes more sense. But okay, I'm just saying that like I do not like this throw, and that's the reason why I use Joban Line Local instead of Joban Line Rapid, even though it's like slower. Yeah, I know, I get it, but like the local line, during peak hours, it's like 1/3 of the trains they go to Kita Ayase, and then if I'm not mistaken, during off-peak hours, it's like half of them go to Kita Ayase, or they just flat out operate as a short working trip. They terminate at Ayase, and basically the remaining 2/3 or like half of the trains, they go to Abiko, or sometimes there will be like Matsudo short working trips. There will be like Kashiwa short working trips, or they get extended to Toride, which is near the border of Chiba and Ibaraki. Even though Toride is, hold on, is Toride in Chiba or Ibaraki? I completely forgot. Okay, Toride is in Ibaraki. It's cause you cross the River, so yeah, it's in Ibaraki. And yeah, this is my home. Okay, so here's the thing. Even though like, uh, even though like half of the trains or like 1/3 of the trains they go to Kita Ayase, at I mean at least I have like consistent serve. Okay, maybe near midnight it's another different story where the train frequencies they can go up to like 12 to 22 minutes, which is like kind of stupid. But like I'm like whatever, it's midnight anyway. Even though sometimes I really want to complain, it's like at least I'm getting like some form of like consistent service. That's the reason why I prefer local. Rapid, on the other hand, let's say off peak frequency, it's like 10, sometimes it's like to 15 minutes as well. But the issue is that I don't want to take the train and then I hear "Kyute shashimasu, kyute shashimasu" every like 5 minutes or so. It's not consistent, and this thing, it's like even though the frequency is like 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes you have to wait for like the freight trains, understandably, or like the limited express trains to pass you. And that wastes a lot of time. That's the reason why. And then, as I've mentioned about like, the safety check at level crossings or whatever can cause a train to emergency brake. I don't like this level of inconsistency when it comes to Joban Line Rapid. That's the reason why I prefer the Chiyoda line to Joban line local true service, even though it's slower, but it's way more consistent. Even if it screws up, it wouldn't really screw up badly unless you're saying something along the lines of like somebody trespassed onto the tracks and thus local and rapid are both affected. Yeah, that has happened before, but like local is just way more consistent than like rapid. That's the reason why I really despise taking Joban line rapid. I hate it. I'm sorry, I tend to forget my hometown a little bit because I'm making content in Singapore and like my mind is just clogged with like all the Singapore bus routes right now. I'm so sorry about that. Okay, now maybe let's explain something that's a bit more like macro level and easy for non public transport enthusiasts to understand. So, okay, let's say this is Yamanote Line. It's a diamond shaped line, geographically speaking, even though it's an enclosed loop. That's the reason why it can go GOA 2 and 3 in the future. And basically, all the one man translates to one man operations. So, yeah, this one is like the city center, and then you have Chuo line, you have Sobu line. Actually, no, no, no. The border should be at Ochanomizu instead. And then you have like Sobu line rapid as well, like this. Then yeah, Yokosuka line it goes to it's a different route as to like Tokaido line, but then it'll converge at like Yokohama again. So yeah, then there is like the cross prefecture line, Takasaki and Utsunomiya line, and maybe let's also draw Musashino as well. And then yeah, there is this sorry for using pink. I know it's red. The Keiyo line. Technically it's KeiyoU, but when it comes to romanization it's just cut off to YO. And then there is where is Shinjuku? There is the KO. There's a U also, but it's also cut out due to romanization. KO line. And yes, there is this stupid Joban line. And then there is this one line which has like god awful frequencies. It's Hachiko line, which connects with Saikyo line at the where you call it, it's Kawagoe. Okay, this is Omiya. So this one has like a. I'm sorry for like not drawing it to scale. This is Kawagoe, and then this is like Saikyo line. Saikyo line connects to right now it connects to Sotetsu, and it Shonan Shinjuku line connects to the Yokosuka line tracks, and yeah. Okay, as an added bonus, I will add in Odakyu as well. The reason why I'm drawing the rail network like this is because this is where like Tokyo is like not just Tokyo but like Shutoken in general. It's like parts of like Saitama, Tokyo, Chiba, West Tokyo area, not part of the 23 wards, but basically everything over here is Ku, and then over here everything is like Shi, Mitakashi, Tachikawashi, Hachioji-shi, and stuff like that. Yeah, this is like West Tokyo, and then like a little bit of Kanagawa as well. These are called like Shutoken. Shutoken. And I believe like Shutoken also includes some parts of like Gunma and Tochigi as well, but those are like kind of suburban areas, so and it's quite hard to like fit it all in this map. So okay, but yeah, the reason why I'm drawing like the railway map is that this is like the most railway dense area, if you would call it. And running east to west, it's mostly done by train. That's the reason why you don't really see any buses like running east to west, like long distance, because it is really too far. And Japan's roads are like really narrow in general, except like the major roads. So it is really not worth it to like cost bus captain welfare and stuff like that. It's not really worth it to like run long distance bus services that aren't like expressway bus services, or like their equivalent of city direct express bus services in Singapore, like their equivalent of it. But then the buses actually play a different role. Their buses are actually like there are buses from like what is that area again, that link between like Shimbashi and Shibuya, and then there's also like Gotanda as well. It's like any area that's like not really accessible by train, there are bus services. There are even like long bus services that connect between like let's say the Chuo line area to like Ikebukuro, and then there's even one Shinjuku to Oji, which is like I think this bus service. And then there are also buses from like Shibuya to this area that allow you to skip those annoying transfers, or like they prevent you from having to like sardine inside the train, get sardine inside the train because it's packed. And yeah, there are bus services that offer like this kind of connections, or like Fukuto Shin Line. It has like an access penalty. It's like so deep underground. That's the reason why they have like uh, Ikebukuro's 86. It parallels Fukuto Shin Line, and it just gives you a much needed level of convenience. You don't really have to like go down just to get crushed on the Fukuto Shin Line. The peak hour demand, I mean, even though it's not the worst technically speaking. Yeah, but cross prefecture buses, you need a lot of paperwork between the two prefectures to introduce a bus service or to withdraw a bus service. That's the reason why cross prefecture bus services are like almost non-existent, except in like in some cases. But the main point that I kind of want to talk about is that you see a lot of these lines, they run like horizontally. And over here, it's mostly done by Keisei group of buses. They run vertically. And then, okay, there's like Cebu line, Cebu. And then there's also like Tobu line. Okay, again, I'm sorry about not drawing it to scale. Where is Kawagoe? Ah, whatever. But like, yeah. Let's just say Tobu line is this. Sorry for not being to scale. There are bus services running vertically because there aren't really any rail lines running vertically, minus like Tama monorail and whatever connection you can get from here and here. But like, you see, the buses in Japan, they are meant to feed people to the areas not accessible by rail, or or it like allows you to skip those annoying transfers. And like I've explained before, the rail runs horizontal, the bus runs vertical, kind of like this. And there's also one more place whereby it's like quite bus dominant. It's Shibuya, because Shibuya, which is like somewhere around here, to reach Odakyu line, you need to take like Keio Inokashira line. And then Keio Inokashira line is run by Keio. Odakyu line is run by Odakyu. And there is no such thing as TRF in the case of Singapore. There are different companies, so you have to like pay separate fares. You cannot it's not like a continuous kind of like distance based fare or anything. I mean, it is distance based, but there is just no TRF in the context of Singapore. So because of this, the bus operators like Tokyo Bus, Odakyu Bus, Keio Bus, they run a lot of like direct bus services, from Shibuya to touch like various train stations along Odakyu line. There is this one, Kyoto. Okay, I think it's Shibuya 54. It runs to Kyoto, and then there is like 21, 22, 23, 24. They go to like, I don't know, Seijo Kakuen Mae. There's also one bus service to like Yoga station on Tokyo Den Toshi line. You see, even though, how do I put it? Okay, whoops, it's kind of messy right now. Whatever. I'll just start a new page. Okay, there are bus operators like Tokyo, Odakyu. Okay, Keio mostly feeds to like the Chuo line areas or Keio line areas. But then this one, they have bus services that kind of parallel the Meguro line or like the Toyoko line or even Denentoshi line. Up the way till like Denenchofu. I'm not kidding. It's like there is this one bus service that runs all the way from Shibuya to Denenchofu. Sorry, Denenchofu is Toyoko line, not Denentoshi. But okay, but to Denentoshi, there are like a ton of bus services that parallel the Denentoshi line. And then there's this one that brings you all the way to Denenchofu, like I've mentioned before. And then there are bus routes that take you to Odakyu line stations, so that you don't really have to make that stupid Inokashira line Odakyu line transfer. They allow you to skip all of these like annoying transfers. And the other benefit of this kind of thing is that within Tokyo and then within Yokohama, Yokohama Shie bus, Yokohama municipal bus, or city bus, whichever you call it, it's flat fare. Toei bus, it's also flat fare. This is a benefit because in some of like the suburban or countryside areas, the like I've explained before in other videos, the bus fare, it tends, for long distance, it can range from like 600 yen even up to like 1350 yen. I'm not even joking. But usually I think it will like plateau out at like 890 or like I don't know 980. I don't know, around there. But yeah, if you get a flat fare bus, you're considered lucky. That's what I'm saying, because public transport in uh Japan is typically a lot more expensive. I mean, partially because of distance covered, it's more expensive as compared to like Singapore. And yeah, and they have no such thing as TRF unless it's like within the same company's railway line. And then if you want a TRF between buses, you need to buy like those special passes, like monthly concession passes that allow you to do this kind of TRF. Or like if you're above 70 years old, you're entitled to a silver pass in Yokohama area that allows you to take Kanachu bus, Yokohama Shie bus pretty much for free. But like it's a monthly concession pass. It's like already a discount from like the usual fares. So yeah, but yeah, Toei bus is flat fare, all of their routes. Yokohama Shie bus is also flat fare. And those Kanachu bus routes, Kanagawa Chuo bus, the ex Yokohama bus routes that got transferred over to Kanachu, like service 1, service 5, those without the kanji in front, those those no kanji bus routes, which is just numbers, they are transferred over from Yokohama Shie bus, and those are flat fare as well, even though they're ran by Kanachu instead of Yokohama Shie bus. But the general trend is that like for other bus operators, those buses that run like within the city, like not too far away from the city center, they tend to be flat fare, and those that serve like suburbs or like the countryside regions, those that take you from one major city area to another major city area, those are like stage fares, like distance based fares. Like they can be distance based, or like they can have 2 to 3 fare stages, and then you board at the front, you tell the bus captain where you're going, and then they would set the fare for you. Or you board from the back, you exit from the front, and they calculate like the distance based fare for like the suburban areas like Kanachubas, for example. I mean, I've already talked about like how, Enoden bus in Totsuka area it's front board back alight, and then in other areas it's backboard front alight and stuff. Like I've already covered that in another video. But anyway, these are just examples. And just like how express fare is introduced in Singapore, some of these suburban routes, they only run, their frequency is like quite bad, and they have to like charge this kind of fares in order to even sustain the service in the first place. Because in Singapore, yes, you don't really have all those like, oh my gosh, express bus routes or anything, but what you get in return is a lot of convenience, a lot of like doorstep convenience that Japan just doesn't offer, which is like sometimes they lack bus drivers, and the number of bus drivers is dwindling. They have to cut away a lot of those bus routes and replace them with like mini bus or mini bus routes. And it leaves a lot of areas like unconnected. So even like hub spoke, it's not really done properly simply because of like the bus driver shortage in Japan in general. Because how do I put it? It's like, let's say within Tokyo, or like just say Japan in general. Yes, when you go to like the other prefectures, like let's say Hokkaido, they tend to have like more long distance bus services out of necessity. But like nearer to Tokyo or like Yokohama, they tend to be like the bus services. They tend to be like really hub spoke, and then they feed to like rail lines, and then they tend to be like hub spoke again. They start at like an MRT. They start at like a railway station, and then they just end in the middle of nowhere. Or in some cases, there might be bus services that like they connect a train station from one line to another train station on another line, or like a train station from this one line to the exact same line but a different station. Lots of route dynamics basically. But Japan's bus routes are like mostly hub spoke, and they bring you to areas that are not accessible by rail. But even within Tokyo, like I've explained before, there are long distance bus routes, like trunk bus routes, not just feeder bus routes. There are, it's just less of them. The reason why Japan adopts hub spoke, it's out of necessity, because their country is so much bigger than like Singapore. Okay, and even within Singapore, like let's say UT, and compare it to like let's say I don't know, Ang Mo Kio, Hougang, Tampines, Boon Lay, or even Bukit Merah. Obviously, Bukit Merah, the population density is like lower and it's more elderly based. I mean, there are HDBs, but like population density is higher here, not so high, but kind of higher here, and this one 302 is like packed to the core, and so is 979. But like yeah, even like the least densely populated towns within Singapore, you can say Serangoon Garden or Saint Mike, there are at least bus services that run like 10 to 20-minute frequencies. But you just cannot say the same thing for Japan. In Japan, a lot of people live in like single houses, or like at most low rise apartments, because high rise apartments are not common because of like earthquakes and stuff like that. That's why they don't really want to build above like 5 stories in general. So yeah, it's like in Japan, the population density, especially in the suburbs and countryside areas, okay, let's just say suburban areas, they are low. And because of that, they don't really run bus services or train services as intensely as Singapore, or as intensely as like the city areas, which you Singaporeans tend to crowd if you're not going to like the countryside areas that are like touristy or whatever. You guys tend to crowd in like the city areas anyway, where the density is much larger anyway. So, but from the perspective of like a resident, like people who live in the suburbs and not inside the city, like those rich people, I would say, they have to suffer with like 30 minute, 1 hour, 2 hour, or sometimes like the bus only comes like 3 or 5 times per day, that kind of bus service. They have to live with this kind of like horrible bus service frequency or even train service frequency. 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour. Okay, but mostly like 30 minutes to 40 minutes to 1 hour. Like Hachiko line, for example. I pity people who live along Hachiko line because the frequencies are really, 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 really terrible. So yeah, Japan just doesn't have that like density to be able to run like, you know, bus services or train services that frequently in the suburbs as compared to like the city where as I've explained before, most of the tourists they tend to crowd in. So for those idiots who are like comparing like one industrial area Alps and then another industrial area Tuas, I mean the fastest way is like okay 35 East West Line. Not every single train goes to Tuas Link. It's like one in three or one in I forgot. But like and then you have to take 248 or slash M, which is like already the closest you can take to Tuas Port. Like look, Japan doesn't have this kind of like luxury when it comes to like even their hub spoke bus routes. In Singapore, more or less, okay, minus off this foresty area and minus off this nature reserve, you guys have like one of the best like connectivity in the entire world when it comes to your bus routes or train routes. And in the future, I think more train lines are gonna sprout up as well. You guys literally have 35 East West Line and 248M that if 248M was in Japan, let me tell you, this thing would run 30 minutes to 1 hour frequencies. And if this thing was in Japan, it will do the same, maybe like 20 to 40 minute frequencies. I'm not even joking. You guys have like the privilege of like having high frequency buses, high frequency trains, and then you're like complaining that, oh my god, from like Alps to Twiceling, it takes 2 hours and 49 minutes. Number one, as an outsider, I will say I know LTA sucks to the max, but like you guys, like even after your buses have been degraded to shit, like your bus and train is still way more efficient to the average. Not even in the city, like even within the city, the bus frequencies tend to be 30 minutes or like 1 hour anyway, because it's like quite real dominant. It's it's like your bus and train is way more efficient than like public transport in Japan's suburbs, and you guys are like complaining that like, oh my god, it's not efficient enough, and then you're like comparing an industrial estate with an industrial estate when what you should be comparing is Pasir Ris to Jurong West, or like I don't know, Pongo to Clementi, or like Woodlands to Marine Parade, or Eunos, Tampines, Bedok, whatever. You guys, I don't know why you guys are like picking the two extreme ends with like little to no people except the people who work in these industrial estates, and then you're like, haha, I'm so smart, I use Google Maps, and then you're comparing it to like a Shinkansen, which is a Shinkansen because there is actual long distance demand for it between two major cities, and it's not like between two residential estates like Pasir Ris and Boon Lay. And then you're like, what, the 10 times as far. Obviously, Shinkansen is gonna be faster than normal bus or train, you idiots! Dude, like, Singaporeans, you guys are like so short-sighted. One end of our small city state to it's industrial estates! Oh my god! If you don't at least state Pasir Ris to Boon Lay, okay, because I'm aware that like Singapore, east to west is like a lot longer than like north to south or south to northeast or south to northwest or whatever. So okay, to be fair, compare Pasir Ris and Boon Lay. Your east-west line, it doesn't take like that long. And let me tell you, if you make east-west line express, number one, you don't have the space either inside the either inside the tunnels or like above ground to like quad track the thing, and it's just like Singapore is so small. It's not really worth it to like run this kind of like long distance express train. I would rather you run long distance express bus like CDS, or even stuff like 506 Tampines North to Tengah, or like this one that brings you from Tampines to Orchard, like Lucky Plaza, Meritus Mandarin, Dhoby Ghaut, Suntec, Bayfront, or like 502 from like Boon Lay to the same areas that I mentioned plus CBD as well. I mean, this one, the route really needs to change. Tampines North to Tengah, please. Because at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that if you want to compare, you gotta be at least more fair with your comparisons. Like, it's a city and a city, and residential and a residential. Okay, maybe both. Maybe like Singapore is like a city in general, so this one kind of counts as well. You have to ask yourself, there is a lot of people going from Tokyo to Osaka. How many people realistically are commuting from Pasir Ris to Boon Lay, or Harbourfront to Punggol, or like Woodlands to Bukit Merah, or Bukit Merah to, I don't know, Choa Chu Kang? How many people realistically are commuting like this? Because a lot of Singapore's demand is not like, oh, I want to go here, I want to go here. No, a lot of Singapore's demand is like quite local based, like local, 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 like local, 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 and not really like this kind of like long distance journey. It's not worth it to run this kind of service in Singapore. And that's the reason why I really cannot stand it when like a lot of Singaporeans they are like, oh my god, Japanese railway should be a model for the entire world to follow. Why isn't Singapore comparing itself to Japan when it comes to railway? But the truth is, Japan is like lagging behind when it comes to automation. And then you guys, you don't live in Japan. You don't understand our daily struggles when we commute to work. Not like, I mean, I'm not necessarily just referring to like the packed trains because the country is hub spoke to shit. I'm talking about the connectivity as well as the reliability. Okay, at least most of the time, Japan's trains they actually do arrive on time, except when there's a delay, obviously. Then you have to hold the trains and the connecting trains as well. But the issues in Japan are mostly like frequency, obviously, which impacts reliability, connectivity of the bus services because it's like hub spoke, and there are a lot of areas, unlike Singapore, which is like pretty much almost the entire island is like covered by bus routes, except like let's say even Lim Chu Kang has buses. Tuas Port is just cause they haven't developed enough to be able to send a bus route down there. So yeah. So again, issues in Japan are like general connectivity in general. Like some places are just not connected, or the buses there have like piss poor frequency. Automation, great separation. These are the kind of things that Singaporean tourists who say, oh, I'm a seasoned traveler to Japan, they wouldn't be able to tell you these things because all they go is to the touristy areas in the countryside or they travel within the city. They are not residents. They do not live in the suburbs and experience the kind of pain we have to experience. Simply put it that way. I mean, like, take Chuo line, take Joban line. Maybe you can take Sobu line Rapid for starters, cause not every service true services to Narita Airport. You might even want to take Kawagoe line beyond Omiya or Takasaki line, Utsunomiya line. Maybe you can try Tokaido line. These lines their frequencies are not that good, or like they're really packed and their reliability is not that good because they have to yield to like free or limited express. Tsurumi line has shit frequencies because it has a lot of branch lines and it's a free line converted to a passenger line. You can even talk about K-Yo line in Chiba. You can talk about Musashino line being kind of unreliable as well because of the freight and stuff like that. Again, nothing wrong with freight trains. I'm just saying like Don't compare this like kind of lines with Singapore MRT. Like at the very least, like it's like at worst 6 to 8 minutes frequencies. Train lines in Japan, even near the city or like the suburbs near the city, they can go out to like 15 to like the 22-minute frequencies sometimes. During peak hours, it's like a different story, but even during peak hours, you might even see 10-minute frequencies. In like Toei Shinjuku line, depends on the train line. Because not many train lines in Japan, they run less than this frequency. Yamanote line runs 5 or 6 during off peak, and during peak it's like 3 to 4. And the 2-minute frequency train lines are mostly Marunouchi line. Even Chuo line, the frequency isn't that intensive as well. You want intensive, look at the private railways. Seibu or Tobu. Look at Tobu, especially during peak hour. The timetables are like kind of crazy. It's like 1 minute train, 1 minute train, 1 minute train, and then different tiers of like expresses. JR doesn't have that many tiers because it's like mostly local or rapid or limited express. And Shinkansen, of course, but that's like a different line. The private railways, they tend to run more tiers. Keisei, Keikyu, Tobu, Seibu, stuff like that. They have more tiers. That's their selling point when it comes to like comparing with like JR lines. So yeah, before you guys continuously simp for like Japanese railway, please actually experience it as a resident and not as a tourist. Okay, I don't know what I'm saying, but like you got to ask like the locals how do they think of their own train services. They will tell you yes, it's on time, but the frequencies are absolutely dog shit, be it bus or train, especially like the further out you go from the city. Because population density, it's not as dense as Singapore when it comes to the suburbs. It's way more dense than Singapore when it comes to the city center, but when it comes to the suburbs, it's not as dense. Get that right. Cause I just wish like people actually understand like the improvements and automation, the constraints, as well as like trying to grade separate railway lines to eliminate all like the level crossings, and as well as the fact that like the reason why Japan, be it their bus or train, has like kind of they have to hub spoke out of necessity because that's just how their system is being built upon, and it's out of no choice. It's because of like the density discrepancy between the city areas and the suburban areas. It's not like Singapore whereby most areas are typically high density. That's the reason why Singapore can afford to run long distance bus routes. And unlike Japan, because Japan, like I said, the roads inside the suburbs or even in the city center, they tend to be like very, very narrow. It's not really good for buses. And that's why Japan even has to have a separate tier for expressway buses or like their CDS, city direct service kind of that equivalent, that kind of route. So yeah, hope you understand the difference why Japan has a hub spoke out of necessity, out because they have no choice, and why Singapore they can affect that they can afford to run a lot of long distance bus routes, and why they can Singapore, be it bus or train, unlike Japan, they can afford to run everything below like 20-minute frequencies, except like maybe 167 or like those like outlier bus routes. They are outliers for a reason, but I will say in general, Singapore's public transport is actually way better than Japan's. Japan only gives off like the illusion that it's better because it's on time and the train skip stops. Because I don't know, like Singaporeans, you guys are like so tunneled when it comes to like, oh my gosh, why Japan has express train? Why Singapore cannot have express train? Japan trains are like so fast, they travel at like 130 kilometers per hour. I mean, they travel at 130 kilometers per hour or like 100, 110, 100, 120 out of necessity. It's not because people want to get to their workplace on time. And it's like long distance, that's why they need to like do it at 130 kilometers per hour. Like Singapore is a small island. Japan is an island. It's a big island. It's just like saying why I have seen some like Singaporean like boomers, they kind of give fake news saying that Oh, in Japanese food courts and in restaurants, they sell plain water because they are more health conscious. No, if Japan was truly health conscious, you would see all the sobaya, udonya, the tempuraya, and all the stores that sell karaage and the fried stuff. You would see all of them close down. And come on, their vending machines, they sell a wide variety of drinks. They even sell alcohol in their vending machines, mind you. Even though I don't consume alcohol, I don't smoke, I don't drink. So yeah. Um I mean like they can say like, "Oh my god, Japan is so health conscious." Newsflash, they aren't. That's not the reason why Japan they offer free water in restaurants and food carts. The reason is because Japan is literally surrounded by water. It's an island. And they have more access to water than Singapore. Singapore, if I'm not mistaken, they literally buy most of their water from Malaysia. They have stuff like desalination plants, like new water, reverse osmosis, and stuff like that. But most of it, if I'm not mistaken, is bought from Malaysia. And because of that, water is like way more expensive in Singapore. And that's why the restaurants are like the food courts, even buying plain water, they have to charge you for it because it is a more scarce resource in Singapore as compared to like in Japan, whereby water is like kind of abundant, and they feel that, oh, every customer deserves a right to at least a glass of water, like as a form of service, and it's just way more abundant and less scarce in Japan, water as a resource as compared to Singapore. This is the real reason why they sell water in Japan. Cold water, ohiya. Uh, you can ask for like hot water if you want, but by default they would give you cold water or ice water. And in some restaurants they give you like, I think, brown rice tea or something along those lines. In Korean restaurants in Japan, they also give you I think it's like rice tea, or like it's some form of tea that I don't really know the name. But yeah, bottom line is, Singaporeans, you guys need to stop spreading fake news about Japan's buses and trains, especially if you don't live there. I don't care if you're a seasoned traveler or what. The locals' opinions matter more. That's the reason why in Singapore, the people who actually take the bus and trains and not outsiders, like, those YouTubers who say Singapore's public transport is top notch. Those YouTubers, those influential people, regardless of Japan or Singapore, or you got to listen to the locals when it comes to how good your bus or train actually is, like being on time, or like frequency, grade separation, automation, reliability, cleanliness of the trains. Because I can tell you that in the countryside, some of Japan's trains, they are like quite neglected because it's just not worth it to like clean them every day. Okay, to be honest, I'm not like justifying that or trying to defend that. I'm just telling you a fact that you go to like Boso Hanto, like the Boso Peninsula, you go to Chiba Prefecture, you see how dirty those trains can get. Yeah, those trains with like yellow and blue striped liveries, those that operate on like Narita Line, Sobu Line, Uchibo Line, Sotobo Line, be it KO rolling stock or Sobu rolling stock, they're dirty. I mean, of course, Narita Express, it has to be cleaner because it's like for tourists. So yeah, you take the local lines, the commuter lines, and not the limited expresses. The limited expresses, obviously they have to clean it, but the local lines, the local line rolling stock, they don't really clean them that often as you might think. They prioritize the city way more. Whether you believe it or not, it's up to you. So yeah, get educated, please. And if you want to talk about the bus routes, one last thing, don't say that Japan's bus routes, they take you from a train station to another train station. No, a lot of Japanese bus routes, they start in the middle of nowhere, or like at a train station or at a depot, and they end in the middle of nowhere. Either they loop or it's like bidirectional. So please learn them before spreading fake news. Also, I may complain about Joban Line Rapid, but technically Tokaido Line, Ueno Tokyo Line, Shonan Shinjuku Line, Takasaki Line, Utsunomiya Line, they get delays literally every single day. If they have, if there is a day that they run without delays, you are extremely lucky. Please take that line to see the commuter's plight. Please, before commenting that Japan Railways are top notch and the best in the world.